Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be tackling power dynamics and self-mastery.
Okay.
And we're going to be guided by the insights of Robert Greene.
Oh, awesome.
Do you know Robert
I
Greene?
do, yeah.
Yeah, he's the author of some really popular books like The 48 Laws of Power,
Okay.
Mastery, The Laws of Human Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be dissecting a recent interview he did on the Jay Shetty podcast.
Oh, cool.
Have you heard that podcast before?
I have, yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
So if you've ever felt kind of like you were at the mercy of forces outside of your control,
Mm-hmm.
or you're just fascinated by how people navigate the world and kind of get what they want,
Yeah.
this deep dive is for you.
I think Robert Greene is so fascinating because he kind of flips the script on how we typically view power, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as this evil, manipulative force
Right.
that's reserved for, just a select few at the top.
So it's not just about like CEOs and politicians.
Exactly. Greene argues that power is really the ability to influence,
Okay.
to shape your environment and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the most fundamental relationship you have is actually with yourself.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's where self-mastery comes in.
Okay.
It's about taking the reins of your own life, escaping that feeling of being a helpless pawn.
I love that comparison that he makes in the interview to feeling powerless like an animal that's been put on its back.
Right.
Like it's vulnerable and prone to lashing out.
Yeah.
It really highlights that primal need for control that I think we all have.
And that brings up a really interesting point, which is, why is power often seen as such a dirty word?
Yeah, it's like we're conditioned to believe that anyone who seeks power must be inherently bad.
Yeah, and Greene really pushes back against this idea.
Okay.
He argues that our culture tends to portray power in a very negative light.
Mm-hmm.
But even figures like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.,
Oh, yeah.
who we admire so much for their peaceful activism,
Right.
they strategically use power to create change.
Think about the Salt March with Gandhi.
Exactly.
Like he mobilized thousands of people peacefully defying British rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's power in action, but it was used for a good cause.
Right.
Or the civil rights movement, where Dr. King so skillfully used speeches and boycotts and nonviolent protests to shift public opinion
Yeah.
and ultimately dismantle segregation.
It's a good reminder that power itself is neutral.
Yeah.
It's the intention behind it
Yeah.
that truly matters.
Absolutely. And that's a crucial point, I think, to remember when we approach Greene's work,
Yeah.
especially his famous book, The 48 Laws of Power.
Right.
Because he's not saying you have to become some Machiavellian mastermind and
Yeah.
adopt every single law and manipulate people.
No.
It's more about awareness, right?
Exactly.
Like understanding the game.
Yeah.
So you can either choose to play it strategically
Yeah.
or choose not to play at all.
Totally.
Like-
And some of the laws are actually defensive.
Okay.
Like they're designed to help you avoid becoming a victim of manipulation yourself.
That's interesting.
Like, for example, there's the law, always say less than necessary.
Okay.
And that's about recognizing that sometimes the less you reveal, the more power you retain.
Interesting.
You create an air of mystery.
Okay.
You leave people wanting more.
So like imagine you're in a meeting
Yeah.
and everyone is kind of scrambling to voice their opinions,
Mm-hmm.
but there's one person who's just observing, quietly absorbing everything.
Right.
When they finally speak, it carries more weight because they've chosen their words so carefully.
Absolutely.
It's almost like they've become the curator of information rather than just another voice in the crowd.
It's a really subtle but effective shift in dynamics.
Yeah.
And it highlights how understanding even one of these laws can give you a slight edge in everyday situations.
Yeah, and it's not about being manipulative,
Right.
but it's about being intentional with your communication.
Exactly.
Which brings us to Greene's emphasis on planning and setting really clear goals.
Yeah.
He talks about how so many of us have these big, lofty dreams, but we struggle to translate them into action.
He compares it to wanting to write a book,
Okay.
which would be so paralyzing.
Right.
But if you break it down into smaller achievable steps,
Yeah.
like writing a chapter a day or even just a page,
Okay.
it suddenly feels manageable.
It's about creating those micro wins that fuel your motivation
Exactly.
and prevent you from getting bogged down by the enormity of the ambition.
And it's not just about the size of the goal, but your approach.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of planning all the way to the end.
So think of it like mapping out a journey.
Exactly.
Like you need to know where you're going and have a clear route in mind, even if you have to adjust a little bit along the way.
It reminds me of that saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And a key part of that plan is setting deadlines.
Yes.
Even if you are your own boss, Deadlines can create a sense of urgency,
Right.
that external pressure that really helps you stay on track.
And he also challenges our conventional understanding of time. He argues that time as we experience it is actually a human construct.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't exist objectively in the universe.
Okay.
We impose these structures of minutes and hours and days onto it.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
Right.
Like, we've created this artificial system to measure something that's inherently fluid and never changes.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he uses this concept to encourage us to act before we feel completely ready.
Oh, interesting.
So think about Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon.
Okay.
He didn't have all the answers or all the resources lined up perfectly,
Right.
but he knew that taking that decisive step, even with some uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
would force him to rise to the occasion.
That's a good point.
And this is not just ancient history.
Yeah.
He compares it to Barack Obama's decision to run for president.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people questioned his experience at the time,
Right.
but he took that leap of faith, and it paid off.
Yeah.
Sometimes that willingness to act, even with a touch of fear, can be the catalyst you need to achieve something extraordinary. It's about recognizing that waiting for that perfect moment or feeling 100% ready
Mm-hmm.
can often lead to inaction
Yeah.
and missed opportunities.
So it's more about calculated risk-taking
Exactly.
and just recklessness.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. And Greene's own experience with mortality has deeply influenced his views on time and action.
Oh, wow.
A few years ago, he had a stroke,
Oh, wow.
which gave him a very real, visceral understanding of life's fragility.
He even talks about how he wears the shirt that he had on that day
He does.
as a reminder. It's
Yeah.
a powerful symbol,
It is.
a constant reminder that our time here is limited.
Yeah.
We shouldn't take it for granted.
And it really makes you think about those little things that we often overlook,
Yeah.
those everyday moments of beauty and connection.
Totally.
He encourages people to cultivate this awareness, even without a near-death experience,
Okay.
through a practice he calls death meditation.
Okay, so I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that. How does one actually meditate on death?
It's not about dwelling on morbid thoughts or becoming fearful.
Okay.
It's about vividly imagining that moment of passing,
Hmm.
making it as real as possible in your mind.
Okay.
And by confronting our mortality, even in this imagined way,
Yeah.
we gain a deeper appreciation for the present moment
Right.
and the choices that we make every day.
So it's about using that awareness of our limited time
Exactly.
to feel action and intentionality.
Yeah.
Not letting fear paralyze us, but letting it motivate us to live more fully.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
And this awareness can be particularly helpful, I think, when navigating challenging relationships,
Okay.
especially those with toxic people.
Oh, yeah.
Greene offers some really practical advice on how to identify and deal with these energy drainers.
Yeah, because we've all encountered those individuals, right?
Of course.
Who seem to leave a trail of chaos and negativity in their wake. But
Yes.
how do we spot them before we get caught in their web?
He suggests paying close attention to inconsistencies in their behavior.
Okay.
Do their words match their actions?
Mm-hmm.
Are there red flags in their past relationships?
Okay.
It's about tuning in to those subtle cues that might reveal a deeper pattern.
It's like that saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also cautions against being swayed by excessive charm or flattery,
Oh, yeah.
especially early on in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a tactic to mask their true intentions.
So trust your gut instincts.
Absolutely.
If something feels off, it probably is.
Yeah.
What are some other red flags that we should watch out for?
Well, he points out that those who talk excessively,
Okay.
always needing to fill the silence,
Mm-hmm.
might be trying to distract from their own insecurities
Right.
or manipulate the conversation.
Yeah.
It's about paying attention to both what they say and how they say it.
Their body language can also be telling, right?
Absolutely. Nonverbal cues can speak volumes.
Yeah.
Are they constantly interrupting or dismissive of others?
Okay.
Do they have a habit of turning every conversation back to themselves?
Mm-hmm.
These can be signs that they're not truly interested in genuine connection,
Yeah.
but rather in feeding their own ego.
So once we've identified a toxic person,
Yeah.
how do we deal with them?
Right.
Because it's easy to get sucked into their drama and negativity.
It is.
Yeah.
Greene emphasizes the importance of emotional detachment.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent,
Right.
but it's about creating a healthy boundary between their emotions and your own.
Okay.
He even suggests having mental scripts ready.
Okay, what?
Like, this isn't about me.
Okay.
This person is struggling with their own issues.
So it's like putting on an emotional shield to
Exactly.
protect yourself from their negativity.
And it's not always about cutting them out of your life entirely,
Right.
especially if it's a family member or a colleague you can't completely avoid.
Yeah, you can't always do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about choosing not to engage with their toxic behavior.
So it's more about managing the interaction
Right.
than controlling the person.
Exactly. And this detachment can actually have a surprising effect on the toxic person,
Really? How?
because often they're feeding off your emotional reactions.
Oh, that's a good point.
So by not giving them that fuel,
Mm-hmm.
you disrupt their pattern.
It's like taking back control of the game,
Yeah,
refusing to play by their rules.
exactly.
It's empowering.
It is.
And if the situation becomes unbearable, Greene encourages exploring other options.
Right.
So, like, if it's a work situation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe transferring departments or even finding a new job.
Because no job is worth sacrificing your mental and emotional well-being.
Totally.
And he applies a similar principle to personal relationships.
Okay.
If you can safely remove yourself from the toxic dynamic, that's always an option.
Yeah.
But if it's a family member or someone you can't easily cut out of your life,
Right.
detachment becomes a crucial survival skill.
It's about protecting your energy.
Yeah.
And prioritizing your own well-being.
And he acknowledges that this is an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time fix.
Right.
You have to continuously cultivate that awareness of toxic patterns and make a conscious choice not to engage.
It's like building a muscle,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The more you practice it, the stronger you become.
And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of power,
Okay.
which is how we sometimes sabotage ourselves.
Well, that's interesting.
Greene identifies several self-destructive behaviors that can actually diminish our power.
What are some of those?
Well, one of the biggest pitfalls he highlights is the inability to adapt to new circumstances.
Okay.
We find strategies that work for us, and we cling to them even when the situation calls for something different.
So it's like we get stuck in a rut,
Yeah.
repeating the same patterns even when they're no longer effective.
It's like trying to use the same map to navigate a completely different terrain.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Greene emphasizes the importance of cultivating a flexible mindset.
Being willing to adjust our approach based on the specific challenges we face.
Makes sense.
He also talks about grandiosity as a major power destroyer.
Grandiosity.
Yeah, that inflated sense of self-importance
Okay.
that can sometimes accompany success.
Mm-hmm.
We start believing our own hype,
Right.
losing sight of the factors that contributed to our achievements.
Like,
Luck, timing, the support of others.
we've all met those people, right?
Of course.
Who think they're like the main character in everyone else's story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Greene cautions against falling into that trap.
Okay.
He advocates for continuous learning and self-reflection,
Mm-hmm.
even when things are going well,
Okay.
to stay grounded and connected to the bigger picture.
So it's not about rejecting success,
Right.
but about maintaining a healthy perspective on our achievements.
Exactly.
Right?
And recognizing that power is not a static destination,
Okay.
but a dynamic process that requires ongoing awareness and self-regulation.
It's like that famous quote from Heraclitus, right? The only constant is change.
Yeah.
And speaking of embracing new ways of thinking, Greene hinted at his upcoming book
Oh, yeah.
about the law of the sublime in this interview.
I can't wait for that one.
I'm so curious about this one.
Me too.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, from what he shared, it seems to be about pushing beyond the boundaries that we typically set for ourselves.
Okay.
Those limitations, often self-imposed, that prevent us from seeing the bigger picture.
So he mentioned this vastness and the improbable nature of existence.
Yes.
It sounds like he's encouraging us to tap into a sense of awe and wonder,
Mhm.
almost like rediscovering that childlike curiosity
Yeah.
that we often lose as adults.
Absolutely. He wants us to embrace the mystery and the unknown.
Okay.
Recognize that there's so much more to life than what we can see and understand.
It's kind of like embracing the unknown.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, and he even suggests a thought experiment.
Oh, I love thought experiments.
Right.
What is this one about?
He asks us to contemplate the astronomical odds of us even existing.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
The chances of your ancestors meeting all the historical events that had to unfold perfectly leading up to your very birth.
It's like winning the cosmic lottery
It is.
multiple times in a row.
Exactly. It makes you realize how precious and improbable life really is.
Yeah.
And by embracing that sense of wonder, Greene believes we can live with more gratitude,
Okay.
more appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the world around us.
It's a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is.
It's almost like zooming out from the minutia of our daily lives and seeing ourselves as part of something much grander.
Yeah.
Something awe-inspiring.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
And it's not just about appreciating the present moment, but about approaching life with more creativity and boldness.
Okay.
Greene seems to be suggesting that by recognizing the infinite possibilities that exist, we can tap into a greater sense of agency and potential.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners?
Well, I think Greene's work offers such a rich and insightful framework for understanding power,
Okay.
both in terms of how it operates in the world and how we can cultivate it within ourselves.
He's urging us to become more aware of the subtle dynamics at play, right?
Right.
In our relationships, our careers,
Yeah,
even in our own internal dialogue.
exactly.
And he reminds us that power isn't inherently good or evil.
Right.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
It can be used for both constructive and destructive purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The choice ultimately lies with us.
Absolutely.
He also emphasizes the importance of, those qualities that really empower us from within,
Yeah.
like self-awareness, self-control,
Yeah.
adaptability, having a strong sense of purpose.
All about the inner game.
These are the foundations upon which we can build a life of true agency and influence.
All of that.
And while he stresses the importance of strategic planning and taking action,
Yeah.
he also reminds us to embrace uncertainty, appreciate the present moment.
It's a delicate balance
Yeah.
between intentionality and surrender.
What if we all started viewing every moment as precious and limited,
Oh, wow.
as Greene does after his experience with the stroke?
Yeah.
How would that change our perspective and our actions?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
It is.
It really challenges us to shed those limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and step into a greater sense of possibility and purpose.
Well, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about Robert Greene's ideas, I highly encourage you to explore his books.
Absolutely.
They offer a wealth of wisdom, practical strategies for navigating the complexities of power, and living a more fulfilling life.
For sure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.